Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions, your home for all things psycho. This is your host, Daniel Muller. Today, we're going to take a look at AM COYOTE by Eclipse Books. Eclipse is a company that started, I think, in the late 70s. It didn't really survive the comic bubble in the early 90s, but it was pretty prevalent. One of those more prevalent independent labels of the 1980s. Had a lot of really cool and interesting books. And actually, it is known for really spearheading the graphic novel movement. Some say that the book Saber from Eclipse is one of the first really graphic novels that ever went out on the popular market. So, very interesting stuff. I picked this up at Planet Comic Con the other day. Actually, my wife saw it and said, "This is so you. This is so you." And I was like, "Well, actually, I've been wanting this book anyway." It's been on my list to get. So, in fact, let me go into my list in the Wizard Comics magazine to my Eclipse checklist. Eclipse Comics checklist here. If you do not have a copy of Wizard number 1, you need to go to Cosmic Lion Productions today and get your Eclipse checklist in order, ladies and gentlemen. This is very important for comic collectors anywhere. So I'm in eyes here, and I am Coyote. So got that check marked. Thank you very much, Eli Schwab, for the genius of this. But enough of that. Let's dive into I Am COYOTE. So, Steve Englehart, Marshall Rogers are the two people who created this magnum opus. It first appeared in, I think it was Eclipse Monthly. It was like an Eclipse magazine style. Again, this is magazine size. This is not your regular comic size. But it first appeared in segments in the anthology of the Eclipse magazine, and then it was collected in this graphic novel volume. No single issues to speak of. Later, Steve Englehart took the COYOTE concept to the Marvel Epic line, and it survived for, I think, about 12 issues or so. I have the first issue of that. I'm going to try to get them. I like the concept. I like the idea. I love Marshall Rogers' art in this. A lot of weird, cool, psychedelic stuff. A lot of, I think, ziptones and duotones collaged together. A lot of collage work. I just completely moved this on you all. Sorry. But let's kind of dive in and take a look. So immediately we get a desert landscape. So this all takes place in Utah. I love desert landscapes. No, I'm sorry. It takes place in Nevada, Las Vegas area. So we get this desertscape, and we see this being coming in on these criminal dudes, and then we get our major splash page. I'm not going to bend this too much because I do not want to bend the magazine and the binding. I know some people that show off comics online, they'll just completely sorry, I can't do that. Oh, word of warning, there is going to be a lot of obscenities. There's going to be a lot of boobies in this too, so if you have little kids watching, please turn it off. Do not let them see. So we get this Coyote character, and he's breaking into a facility basically that these criminals are guarding. So it's just a basic introduction. He's taking out some thugs. The great oh, there goes my. I apologize. I'm just gonna have to leave that in. The cool thing about the Coyote concept is that Steve Englehart really wanted to create something, a concept that was different and unique, but still kind of was in that superhero vein. So it's still got a little bit of that. But it really taps into the mythos of Coyote and the Native American legends. So some pretty cool city scenes here as we get into Vegas. We get a lot of cool use of colors and shapes. But basically, the whole setup here is that there's this organization called the Shadow Cabinet, and Coyote is trying to infiltrate this particular organization because their thing keeps moving. I don't know. Coyote is playing a little trick on me. In the Native American myths, Coyote is not just a wolf. Coyote is kind of a demigod creator being that is like a trickster more than anything else. In some myths, is almost as powerful as Great Spirit or God itself. But really, it's just kind of, it's almost like a Loki character, but it's always about lessons and learning certain lessons. But a lot of cool, fun myths from many different types, because it's not just a Native American myth. There's many different tribes, nations, and they all have their own different types of myths like Coyote. You should always look them up. And I really strongly associate with that particular mythological archetype, which is why my wife had me pick this up. So we get this facility where the Shadow Cabinet is hanging out, and so Coyote is trying to infiltrate that because he wants to take down this organization. This Shadow Cabinet organization is trying to take over the government, the world, and everything. For some reason, this just still keeps moving, and the Coyote's tricking me. So he goes in, and we start seeing some really cool stuff in terms of Coyote's powers. So we start getting this collage work and this use of duotone. And the whole aspect of that is that he calls it kind of a twisting. Like he twists through reality, turning sideways through reality into a sort of space within the mind and in dream time that he travels. So it's kind of an in between space, really. So we get a lot of cool visuals and images whenever he does that in this book. Again, so it seems like there's some collage, some duotone, zipatone, all kind of like cut into one another. Makes some really cool effects. The coloring palette, I can't remember who did the coloring. I don't think it was Marshall Rogers. And maybe it was Marshall Rogers. No, the colorist is Joe Esposito. With assists by George Pratt. Art assists by George Pratt. The colors, sometimes they're a little heavy-handed. I don't think that they anticipated the way that the printing would impact the color palette choice, especially on top of the just layers of zipatone and duotone. This is hilarious. So anyway, he infiltrates, and there's this lady who's the head of the cabinet, and starts to try to get to know her. So he infiltrates the facility. All of the bad guys end up escaping, except for the head lady, she does take off, but he begins following her. And another thing that Coyote can do is that he's actually a shapeshifter. So he shapeshifts into a white guy and starts following her into a casino type hotel. Forms a little bit of a connection there. He's definitely intrigued by her strength, despite the fact that she works for an evil organization. Coyote is kind of amoral in many ways. Coyote is not, both in the book and in the myths, he's not good or bad. But he likes power, he likes sex, he likes strength, he likes to have fun. Those are all the things about Coyote that make Coyote Coyote. And so we get a little bit of his past here in the origin of Coyote. And basically, his mother and father go out to park. They're Native American, looks like, and they go out to park somewhere in the desert. And I guess they go to watch, I'm not really sure, but maybe watch like an atom bomb getting tested or something. But they don't, there's a flash, and the ground shakes, and they don't return. They left the baby in the car. So the baby's left in the car, and eventually he's, crying, and a coyote actually comes and opens up the car door, and that coyote is actually Coyote. And what we find out is this man who can shapeshift into a coyote and whatnot, he's talks about what he calls others or outcasts. And so there's a whole collection and community of people that are vampires, incubi, werebeasts, and so he considers himself to be a werebeast, a wereman, and so Coyote is what he shapeshifts into. And so this community of all these others or outcasts come, and the older man Coyote makes a connection with a woman named Moria, who is a psychic vampire. And so the boy, growing up and being raised by this old man, forms a strong bond with this woman, because it's kind of like the mother that he was never able to get. And she wants to teach him the ways of the world. So we cut back to Vegas in the modern day, and Coyote has shapeshifted into a new fella who is this Hispanic rich man who starts forming a connection with that. Gotta keep moving. Coyote keeps moving this thing on me. Forming a connection with Felida, who is the head of that organization. So they get to know each other. They have a good time. She, of course, is wary of anyone trying to get close to her, so she has all kinds of checks run on him, background checks. Apparently, he seems to be genuine. So they form an even stronger bond. So it's probably pretty hard to tell, but this is all duo shade or what have you. So they form a really strong bond. They start making love quite a bit, and a lot of talking about the organization. And through this, he starts kind of, trying to find out a little bit more about what's going on. We get more bleed over into that kind of other realm that he slips into and starts following her. And then we get a shift back into his past. In that shift in his past, he was angered that the psychic vampire lady took him out into the real world to, see cities and things like that. He wants to stay isolated, and takes the boy, and this is the boy who is the Coyote main character. He just calls himself Coyote. Takes him up to a mountaintop, eats a bunch of peyote, and all the worlds of the supernatural open up to him. And so that's basically, it seems like, where he got his powers. You get some kind of like poetic sort of like acrobatic dance that starts happening. The peyote opens up his mind and opens up his body to the true potential that he has as a supernatural being himself. So pretty cool. I wish that the coloring was a little less clunky, because there are some really cool psychedelic effects in this. So we get a little bit more of his past here. The exclamation of him calling himself Coyote. So it's pretty cool stuff. Anyway, moving on back into the present day, he's followed Felida to this underground chamber where she meets the Void. And Void is really the kind of nuts and bolts of the Shadow Cabinet, the Grand Inquisitor of the Illuminati, so to speak. And a really interesting being, and kind of comes in and out in this weird kind of, energy, duo shade energy. He's got this gas mask. He's on, he's got crutches. But he knows, he can sense Coyotes around, even though Coyote can kind of slip in and out and people can't really see him. But he can definitely sense him. And then goes right into that other realm with Coyote. So he has that power and ability to slip right in. And this is what the Void really looks like on that other side. Starts attacking Coyote, so they're both, kind of fairly well matched, but Coyote does get his ass handed to him. But kind of sort of so does the Void a little bit as well. Little discussion that goes on between Felida and the Void in terms of, her allegiance, her loyalty. And then we get a little bit, this is hilarious. And then we get a little bit of the Void's past, which basically, he was a guy who was working on the bomb, some sort of bomb, and got injured, and medical science basically kept him alive, but he just spiraled down into the deep recesses of his mind because the pain was so much, and just slipped into the void of consciousness, and that's why he's called the void, where he just met all sorts of monsters and beings that kind of help empower him. So, and he refers to it as the lower plane. So this is actually a very common sort of indigenous shamanic mindset, that there's different planes of existence, and there's the lower plane, which is just like the underworld, and then there's this plane where we live, and then there's like another world where Great Spirit is, the upper plane. But Coyote is able to kind of shift through these areas, but this guy is obviously drawing his power from the lower plane. He thinks he's gotten rid of Coyote, but of course not so. So Coyote ends up forming a stronger bond with this woman. She didn't like that Coyote was hurt. Lord, come on, Coyote. Give me a break here. Coyote, give me a little bit of break. So they grow in strong relationship to one another. The book progresses. There's a little bit of lag in story, really, in terms of like there's a little repetition, but it's still cool. It's still a very entertaining read. Marshall Rogers is just very competent artist all around. He's done a lot of work for Marvel and DC. And so Steve Englehart. And one thing that was interesting I found about Steve Englehart is he ended up actually doing a lot of Ultraverse stuff, which I really like. I know not a lot of people like it, but I really did. So I completely forgot that he was responsible for a lot of that. Long story short, Felida and Coyote end up actually really falling in love. So their relationship grows much deeper, and Coyote even starts testing her to make sure that she's not going to cheat on him with the shadow cabinet by even faking his own death, watching her to see if she picks up the phone to call the shadow cabinet, and it looks like she's done. She's does not want any more part of that and just wants to be with him, and he's really growing fond of her. Towards the end, we get a little Johnny Carson. So there was this terror plot that the Void was going to implement by actually putting plutonium in the Oscar awards, the Academy Awards, each of the actual trophies to give out to people, so that all of the actors, which were the icons of the modern world, would end up dying off, and it would cause a disruption in humanity's I don't know, hope or something. I don't know. But anyway, we get Johnny Carson talking at the Oscars, and Coyote basically says he came in and he disrupted. This is crazy. This is insane. I've never had this issue before. And basically lets everybody know that he disrupted the Void's plan, and the Void comes in and starts battling them. So they kind of have a battle in those other realms. So lots of madness. There was kind of like a weird thing where the Void was pretty easily taken out, but Felida knew how to take him out. In the very end, though, he gets shot even after he takes out the Void, and it's Felida. She tricked him the whole time. I can't keep up with this camera. It keeps moving on me. This is insane. Oh, what a fun video. And even though she betrayed him, you can't stop Coyote with the bullet because he's Coyote. And this is the money shot here, rips out her throat, even though it's a silhouette. I mean, this is what the Eclipse comics were pretty well known for. I mean, they weren't shy about gore and nudity and stuff. All the things you couldn't get in a Marvel or DC comic. And the very last panel is Johnny Carson going, huh? Because Coyote just disappears into the night. And that's it. And then Coyote's story actually, again, picks up in Coyote #1 through Epic Comics, which I have. But I don't have the others, so I want to pick up some of the others before I start kind of diving into that run a little bit more. But I think it was a different artist. I can't remember the artist at the run, but Marshall Rogers did not continue. So I am Coyote. This camera is fucking insane. Oh my god. Alright, everyone. That's AM COYOTE. That's Eclipse Comics. Remember, go out and get your copy of Wizard the Comics magazine. I'll put a link in the chat. And you all keep it psycho, folks, and don't let Coyote get you.